What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another late night in the BrewLab with me, Lone Fox, your brewmaster-in-chief. And tonight, in the BrewLab, I'm coming at you with the final episode of Spoiler Talk on this, which is to be the night before early access event. I thought it would be a good idea to just wrap up Spoiler Talk. I've got lots to get through, and so it's about time that we get cracking. I'm going to pick up where we left off last time, which was over here with the root wire amalgam. And after I finished recording that day, 3 more cards came out for November 2nd, and there's some pretty good ones. So first up, we got Thriller, which I'm not going to alt tab. I know what it does, even though it's in Portuguese. But this might actually be a serious contender. I'm thinking probably in something like Simic Ramp, because it's or even just mono green. So the first mode is search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then the second option is target creature you control fights another creature that you don't control. So it's basically a ramp spell and a fight spell. Love the versatility. For 1 mana, it's a sorcery, but still, I think this could definitely see some play. Like I said, probably Simic. Like you use it to hit your land drops in the early game, and then once you've dropped down your big thing you're ramping into, then you use it as a fight spell. I definitely think this will see some play. A very nice little uncommon. I love the versatility on it and the cheap cost. Then we've got, this is another doozy for an uncommon. Might be a little bit of a sleeper. Mask of the Jade Crafter, 2 mana artifact. So, will trigger all of your artifacts, synergies, and things. And then you can pay X, tap it, sack it, and then you make an XX colorless golem artifact creature token. And you can unearth it and do it all again, which is pretty nice. I mean, definitely a great mana sink for all of your Power Stone tokens. And because artifacts aren't, they don't have summoning sickness, you can do this the turn it enters the battlefield. You pay 2 mana with your normal mana, and then use all your Power Stones to make a huge golem artifact creature token, which is pretty sweet. I think this might also see some play. But the next card, Teething Wormlet, this one's definitely going to see some play. I'm going to be jamming this into the first deck that we play on early access tomorrow evening. Teething Wormlet, mono greens needed another decent 1-drop. Well, I think this might be it. It's got Death Touch as long as you control 3 or more artifacts, which is very easy to do. And then whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. If this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn, you also put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it is to note that you'll still gain the life if you play additional artifacts, like if you do 2 or 3 artifacts entering the battlefield in a single turn. You'll still gain the life for each of those artifacts, but you'll only get the +1/+1 once per turn. But, of course, there's things like, first thing that comes to mind is Big Score, which is an instant speed spell that also makes artifacts, treasure tokens. So it does say whenever a battlefield enters an artifact enters the battlefield under your control for this turn. It's just this turn. So it can be during the opponent's turn or yours. So you can, get this to trigger during the opponent's turn as well with something like Big Score, which is pretty nice. So Death Touch, great blocker. Artifact synergies, gains you some life. I mean, all around, just really nice little 1-drop for any kind of green X artifacts matters type decks. And like I said, you'll have to tune in tomorrow to the early access stream on my Discord if you want to have a look at me jamming with this card early. I think it's going to be a serious contender. But then November 3rd brought us a bunch of stuff that's for Jumpstart, but it turns out these are standard legal. Then none of them really blow my mind except for maybe these last 2, but we'll go through all of them. The first one is Terra Ballista, 7 mana, 5/3 with Menace. Whenever it attacks, you may sack another creature. When you do, destroy target creature an opponent controls. So, you know, even if they like maybe double block to get rid of it, you can then sack something else and kill one of the blockers. So now it's not dying anymore. But the 3 toughness was 7 mana and 5 mana to unearth it. I honestly don't understand why this is rare. Am I missing something? Let me know in the comments. Not terribly impressed with this one at rare. Overpriced, not the most amazing thing. Does nothing when it ETBs. Dies to Lightning Strike. Next up, though, this is probably the third best one out of the lot from this Jumpstart little drop we got. And I find it quite nice of Wizards that they've given, you know, some of the favorite tribes, angels, dragons, and whatnot. They've all got an artifact version in the set. So this is the Dragon Artifact creature. 6 mana, 4/4 with flying. Has Unearth 5. And artifact creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So you can just, you know, unfortunately you can't dump your colorless mana from the Power Stones into it. I think that was intentional because Power Stones only tap for colorless. This requires red mana. So 6 mana, 4/4 flying. Is that where we're at right now? Like, I don't know. Very underwhelming so far, these Jumpstart cards. And that is the same for the Woodcaller Automaton. 10 mana, 8/8 with Prototype 4. Pay 4 mana for a 3/3. Or 10 mana for an 8/8. But it does have an ETB trigger. Unfortunately, is one of those that says if you cast it, so it can't be blinked. But when it ETBs, you can untap a target land you control. It becomes a tree folk creature with haste and base power and toughness equal to its base power and toughness. It's still a land. It doesn't say until end of turn, so it just becomes a tree folk for the rest of the game. So of course, you know, if you play for 10 mana, you get an 8/8 tree folk alongside your 8/8 that you just dropped. So you're essentially paying 10 mana for 16 power on the battlefield. Yes, cool, but you can't reanimate it. You can't trick it into play with anything. You have to cast it. Something that has to be mentioned that I've only just kind of realized in the last couple of days is Fight Rigging says you may cast the spell without paying its mana cost. So you're still casting it. So there is one way of cheating these big things that say, you know, that have this little, if you cast it in the text box, that isn't reanimation or whatnot, but it's Fight Rigging. You can cast this for with Fight Rigging, and then we're talking. So suddenly, maybe it's actually playable. You jam 4 of these in your deck, hit it off of a Fight Rigging, get it to trigger as soon as possible, cast this thing on like turn 4 or 5 or something, and then you get 16 power on the battlefield. Potentially pretty busted. Of course, you also need a way to give them haste, and it doesn't even have trample, so I don't know. We'll have to see. The tree folk has haste, but no trample on either of the bodies, so we'll see. Then we've got the Geology Enthusiast. Now things start to get a little bit better. Although it's still, I don't know, these Jumpstart cards. Anyway, I sound like a stuck record. I won't repeat myself. But the Geology Enthusiast is 5 mana for a 2/5 Human Artificer. At the beginning of your end step, create a tap Power Stones token. Every end step, you get a Power Stone token. And then it's got colorless in the activated ability, so you can use those Power Stones to pay for this pretty high activated ability at 6 mana, but you know, you're probably going to be able to do that. I mean, definitely going to be able to do that the very next turn. And then you can draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Suddenly, starts to be, you know, first of all, 5 toughness, pretty tough to get rid of. And then just gives, you know, at least you get something out of it when it first enters the battlefield on that end step. You get a Power Stone. Even if it just gets killed, at least you got that. But if it gets to sit on the board for a few turns, suddenly pretty bonkers. But again, just seems a little bit overpriced, understated, a bit slow. But now, of the bunch, this is the one that I think is the most playable. The Rescue Retriever. We get at least one doggo in every set. They're usually a little bit cheaper, like 1 or 2 mana, and do less insane things. This one's actually really good. It's got flash. So I've talked already about this a few times, how Soldiers is looking like some sort of either Jeskai or Azorius Tempo type brew. And a lot of these soldiers have flash, and this one can just be your top end. Flash it in, and when it ETBs, you put a +1/+1 counter. It's not +1/+1 until end of turn. You put a +1/+1 counter on each other soldier you control, and then prevent all damage that will be dealt to other attacking soldiers you control. So you can either flash this in like offensively, and even if the opponent did block some of your soldiers, you prevent all damage that would be dealt to them, because this only works if it's attacking soldiers you control. Or you can use it defensively, flash it in, grow all your team, block a few things, trade, whatever. And I think that's actually pretty nice. Unfortunately, if we're going into Jeskai, suddenly the 2 white pips here becomes a little bit, but by turn 5, it should be okay. Like I said, maybe just like a 2 or a 3 of. It's not legendary. Maybe a 3 of in your like Soldiers Tempo deck. But the art is just freaking amazing. It brings the 2 things weary soldiers need most: medicine and morale. I love it. I love it. So that's it for the jumpstart cards. Then we've got some commander stuff, which we can happily skip over and go straight on to the next batch. And this is the last big batch that had like rares and mythics. Then it's the final dump of commons that we'll zip through quickly. There's a couple of must mentions and things, but nothing fantastic, so we'll skip through that one pretty quickly. So really just this last batch here to slug through, so bear with me. We've got, I think, a really important card for this format, the Haywire Might, a 1 mana artifact creature insect. And when it dies, you gain 2 life, and then you can pay 1 green to sack it and exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. I think there's going to definitely be some really important must-kill of both of those things, and the fact that you can do that for 2 mana, 1 to cast it, 1 to do the thing. It's not a tap ability, so you can do it the turn it enters the battlefield, and you got a little upside of gaining 2 life, and you're not destroying it, you're exiling the thing. I think, and it's an artifact, so going to trigger all your artifact synergies and things. I think this might actually see like some significant play in the coming standard, if not on the main board, definitely as a sideboard card. Keep your eyes peeled on the Haywire Might over here. Next up, we're going to have to Alt tab for this one because I can't read Japanese. This is the Sarinth Great Worm. 6 mana for a 7/6 trample. It's a worm. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, create a tapped Power Stone token. So there's a lot of this like land matters stuff kind of slowly creeping its way back into the format. And this is a pretty decent way of getting some Power Stones. It doesn't specify that the land needs to enter the battlefield on your turn. So it's whenever a land. So even if the opponent plays a land, you get the tapped Power Stone token. And 7/6 is chunky. So yeah, let's see what other people are saying about this. Yeah, good point. Not that I play Commander. Yeah. Yeah, no, this is a good card. I don't know if it'll actually end up seeing a lot of play, though. I wouldn't craft this on day 1 at all. Wait for me to do that like legwork for you before we see if this is actually something that needs to be crafted. But pretty nice. Gigantic Trampler. that helps you ramp into even more gigantic artifacts and stuff. I like it. I like it a lot. And I like the fact that, you know, there'll be turns where you can play 2 lands in one turn, but there's plenty of things that allow you to do that. And so you're getting multiple power stones on your turn, and the opponent maybe plays 2 lands or 1 land, untap, because the power stone tokens always enter the battlefield tapped. But if the opponent's playing a land, then you untap that power stone. You know, it's quite a bit of ramp. And the typical line that we've been used to saying when it comes to these big, expensive, sort of win more looking type things, you're like, well, how much more ramp do you need if you've already got 6 mana to cast the Sarenth Great Worm? Well, we all saw the 10 drops and things that we're going to be dealing with in the next set. So I think actually, you know, that line falls mute at the moment and should definitely, you know, we'll be needing ramp on turn 6, in my opinion. So maybe the Great Worm is, especially if you're playing in these colors, might be some good way of doing that. Then we've got Symmetry Matrix. This one I've seen on Twitter a bit. It's a 4 mana artifact. It's definitely plenty better things to be doing on turn 4 than just playing a thing that does nothing. But whenever a creature with power, also very complex kind of like deck building conundrum, because you need to play creatures that have power equal to its toughness. But, you know, there's lots of that, obviously. And then whenever that does happen, you get to pay 1, draw a card. Maybe even in just like a control deck of some kind, like some card advantage. Just play like a 1-of. Then you've got your Wedding Announcement. A little 1/1 enters the battlefield at the end of turn. Pay 1, draw a card as well. It's not terrible, but I don't know. Probably won't see much play outside of Limited. Then we've got Deadly Riposte. Deadly Riposte. I think, riposte is a French word for the fencing. It's like a fencing, you know, when they say en garde, riposte. It's like it's what the guy's doing in the picture. Deals 3 damage to target tapped creature, you gain 2 life. I think this will be a bit of an all-star in Limited, where there's less removal options. Also depends on like how aggressive the format is, the type of creatures that people play. But like 3 damage is just a bit important stuff, like Adeline, Sarah Paragon. I mean, there's so many things that just dodge this completely, and then it just becomes a dead card in your hand. But the 2 life gain as well isn't bad. Yeah, probably just draft chaff. Next up, we got the Steel Exemplar. 5 mana 4/4 trample artifact creature wizard. When it ETBs with an additional 2 +1/+1 counters on it, unless 2 or more colors of mana were spent to cast it. So you can play this in 2, 3, 4, 5 color decks if you wish. Then you're probably going to be using your Power Stone tokens to play it, because it is an artifact. Therefore, you're not spending 2 or more colors of mana to cast it. So then you're actually, you know, getting a 5 mana 6/6 trample. Suddenly it's not too shabby. But if you don't have the Power Stones, or if you're trying to play this in a 2-color deck, then you're just paying 5 mana for a 4/4 trample. So again, probably a pretty powerful card to be playing in your draft, Limited deck, but I don't think this will see any play in Standard whatsoever. Next up, we got Gwenna, the Eyes of Gaia. Ooh, an elf. Have we had any 1-drop elves? I really was hoping for elves to get a bit of a boost in the set, as well as goblins, because we did get all those lords. Don't forget, you know, there's plenty more sets before all of those lords will rotate out. I'm even thinking of, oh my goodness, what's the one with all the with all the dinosaur cards and the merfolks? You know, the merfolk guy is going to get support then. But this is another set on Dominaria. I was really hoping that elves would get fleshed out a little bit more, but I mean, this is an elf. The 1-drop slot is just horrific. Anyway, Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia, legendary creature, elf druid scout. This is a broken ass card. I can see people doing infinite combos with this in Historic and Explorer, and what have you, especially if you consider Bard class, if you remember that guy. You can tap it to add 2 mana in any combination of colors. You can only spend this mana to cast creature spells or activate abilities of a creature or creature card. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, you put a +1/+1 counter on it and you untap it. Any card that says that sort of thing where, like, you know, untap it and then you can tap it to add mana, then you can do these like loops. So I can imagine this just completely going bonkers in some kind of like historic Bard class deck. It's also legendary, and it's in green. So I don't think this is going to go into your Elf Tribal standard deck anytime soon, because we don't have much like 5 power or greater things that will actually trigger it and whatnot in that deck. But if you're into like all the formats, this might actually be really strong. So keep your eyes on Gwenna. And of course I'll try it out, but not too hyped on this one in standard. Then we've got Horned Stone Seeker, 2 mana lizard. That's a 2/2 menace. When it ETBs, you create a Power Stone token, but when it dies, you also have to sack a Power Stone. This might actually end up seeing a little bit of play. Like, if ramping Power Stones is really important, which it seems like it's gonna be, then this is the cheapest one I've seen so far. 2 mana makes a Power Stone. Also maybe in like, you know, Oni Cult Anvil type things. ETBs makes a Power Stone, which you can sack to your Oni Cult Anvil, and then when it dies, you sack another Power Stone token, which will again trigger your Oni Cult Anvil without needing to tap it. Who knows? Seems a little bit underwhelming. Definitely not going to go in your RDW, like, aggressive red decks, but maybe in some sort of Power Stone rampy thing, or, like I said, in a Rakdos Sack deck or something like that. Let's see. Then we've got Sarinth, the Steel Seeker. 2 mana 1/2, Human Artificer Scout. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control. Okay, so another one of these that cares about artifacts, ETBing. You get to look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may reveal it, put it into your hand. If you don't, put that card in your graveyard. So maybe this is okay in like some sort of self-mill artifacts deck where you're getting a land, and if you're not getting a land, then you're putting the things you want in your graveyard into your graveyard. Again, might see a little bit of fringe play in some deck like that, but I don't see it being very relevant. Then we've got the Battery Bearer. 4 mana. Oh, I've seen this one on Twitter as well. This card turns all your creatures into Power Stones. 4 mana, 3/4. All your creatures have tap, add, colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. So it's the same line of text from a Power Stone. And then whenever you cast an artifact spell with mana 6 or greater, draw a card. So you can, you know, play this on turn 4. You've got a bunch of creatures down already. You can tap all those creatures to cast another artifact, and then the turn after, when you untap with it, you can play a huge, you know, artifact spell like Hulking Metamorph or whatever, or Steel Exemplar, using your creatures as mana or as Power Stones. So this could I'm definitely going to try this. Some kind of like Simic big artifacts deck. We got some really nice ones in blue and green, both the prototype and the unearthed ones. So 4 toughness, fairly decent blocker. I think this might actually see some play, and you can often double. It feels like the Catilda that does a similar thing with humans. Like, suddenly your humans can tap for a mana of their color, so then you play your Catilda when you've already got some not summoning sick creatures on the board that then you can tap to cast something else. So similar thing. You play this on turn 4, and or that's it for my turn. No, now you've got maybe 3 or 4 mana available from the other creatures you played on the way to this. Tap those as well, play an artifact. So, it's not terrible. I think this is definitely going to see a little bit of Fringe play, and I, for one, I'm going to try it out for shizzle. Then we've got Hulking Metamorph, 9 mana. This is the uncommon prototype for the blue. You can prototype it in for 4, then it's a 3/3. Otherwise, it's a 7/7, and it's a copy effect. When it ETBs, you can copy an artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact creature in addition to its other types, and its power and toughness are equal. So, you can copy an artifact or creature you control, and then, if you prototyped it in, it's a 3/3. If you cast it, it's a 7/7. The cool thing is you can blink it. Doesn't have that if you cast it little line of text. So interesting one, this. I think this is definitely going to see some play. I've always liked these clone shapeshifter type things. Right now we've got 2 in standard. There's the undercover operative, and the it's a spirit with disturbed. Mirror Hall Mimic. Nailed it. Which both cost 4 mana, so you can see why the prototype costs 4. I think this will see some play. I definitely will be trying this in my is it type decks, or maybe even this battery bearer brew. We'll see, but I like it. I like this a lot. It's a nice little uncommon. Then we got the Spotted Thopter. 8 mana for a 4/5 flyer, or you can prototype it for 4 mana. You get a 2/3 flyer. And then with ETBs, you can scry X, where X is its power. And it doesn't have the if you cast it text again, so you can blink it, which is pretty sweet. You blink this, you scry 4, or you cast it for 4 and you scry 2. It's very meh. It's not amazing. I'm definitely more hyped on the Metamorph here of the 2, but it's not terrible. Probably more of a limited card. Next up, we got Defabricate, which I believe was CGB's official spoiler card, which was, as he said, perfectly on brand. You can choose one: counter target artifact or enchantment spell, and if a spell is countered this way, exile it instead. I think that's going to be very relevant, if not in the main board, depending on how strong these artifact decks become. Definitely sideboard card. And you can also, I love the versatility. It's enchantment or artifact spell for 2 mana, instant speed, obviously, and or counter target, activated or triggered ability. So, pretty freaking nice. I think this is 100% going to see play. And it's not even a big deal to have to craft it or anything. It's uncommon. I think this is going to be a very important piece in any sort of blue-based control deck in the coming format. So keep your eyes on Defabricate. I think by the time we get a couple weeks in with a new set, we're going to be hating this card. Then we got Titania's Command. Finally, the green command. After all the others got spoiled quite a bit earlier, this one was the final one to get spoiled. They kept a couple of tidbits for us on the final day with actual rares and mythics in it, and probably one of the best ones. Right now, my list goes blue, green, and then probably the white one. And then the rest are so bad that I don't even really remember them. But Titania's Command, 6 mana, choose 2. Again, talking about, I kind of mentioned with the worm here, like, why would you need to ramp more when you've already got the mana to cast this for 6? Same thing. We got 9 mana stuff hanging around, 10 mana stuff hanging around. So one of the modes is search your library for up to 2 land cards. Doesn't specify basic lands. You can go fetch your triomes. You can go fetch your whatevers, your grottos, whatever. You can go tutor up any 2 lands onto the battlefield. Then you can exile an opponent's graveyard. Gain 1 life for each card exiled this way. Doesn't specify which type of card, nothing. Amazing. With all the Unearth going on, all of the Titan of Industries, Gix stuff, like, exile the whole graveyard, also gain life for that. Doesn't even, it's not symmetrical. Your graveyard's fine. It's just the opponent's graveyard. Amazing. Or you can make 2 2/2 green bear creature tokens, or you can put 2+1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So even if you have nothing on board, you can pick these last two modes and just get like 2 4/4s for 6 mana. That's not terrible. It's basically 3 mana for each 4/4. I think this is really good. It's very situational and flexible depending on the board state. You know, if you untap the turn after you've cast Titania's Command, you've got 8, 9 mana to play with. Yeah, just nice. A nice card. I think one that is definitely going to see some play. But the next one, this is 1,000,000% going to see some play. This card is bonkers. Hostile Negotiation is a black instant for 4 mana, 3 and a black. Exile the top 3 cards of your library in a pile face down. It's basically people are calling this black fact or fiction, or the closest thing we have right now in standard is the blue Sphinx with Domain. 3 top cards of your library face down. Then you do another 3 cards from your library face down. So there's 2 piles now. You look at one of those piles. You have to choose one of the piles before you see them. Then you turn it face up. So then now you and the opponent both know what's in the face up pile. And then your opponent chooses a pile, and you put that pile into your hand, the other pile into your graveyard. It's not even exiled or at the bottom of your library. So, like, you're doing so many things. Yes, you lose 3 life, but, like, card advantage, putting the opponent in weird decisions. You can do this at instant speed during their end step. You're putting stuff into the graveyard, which you might want to be doing. Like, just, I'm sure the comments are ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. 4 mana, draw 3 and mills 3. 3 life, too much? Nah, man. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, better version of fact or fiction. Yeah, exactly. Like, putting this decision is gonna like cause timers to run down at competitive events, like, for sure. Pros are gonna be stressing about that decision, and I know I am as well. And I can't wait to put the opponent in that position. And it signals a shift more back towards maybe control. Not mono black control, because we didn't get a sweeper. Wowza. Some like super important thing to note about this set. They banned Me Took Massacre. My thinking was they knew what was coming, and there was going to be some other black sweeper that would replace it. It didn't need to be as good, but just a black sweeper of some form. Nada. We still only have Drag to the bottom, really, and you can't play that in mono black. Has to be a domain deck. So mono black control without a sweeper seems a bit difficult to get going. But if it does exist and if it's doable, then I think this is 100% going in that deck. If not a full play set, like a 3 or a 2 of, for sure. And you will 100% be seeing this in standard, and I would hold off on crafting them straight away until a perfect like shell for it is found. But yeah, I think you're pretty safe crafting these if you've got wild cards lying around. Before it rotates out of standard, this card will 100% see a lot of play. That's one of my predictions for the set. Like, keep your eyes on Hostile Negotiations. But next up, we got Killzone Acrobat, 3 mana, 3/2 human soldier. When it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, Killzone goes flying until end of turn. Okay, cool. Attack before they declare blockers. You sack something, gains flying, swing in for 3. Nice little like draft common. Then we got Ravenous Gigamole. A Gigamole, a mole horror. 4 mana, 2/3. When it ETBs, mill 3 cards. You may put a creature card from among the cards. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter. Draft chaff. Thraxodemon. A lot of this is going to be just draft chaff, but so I'm going to read really quickly. 2 mana, 2/2. Pay 3, tap, sack it. Another creature or artifact, draw a card. Gixian Skullflare. 3 mana, 2/3. For Phyrexian Human Assassin. Another assassin, huh? Another Phyrexian Human Assassin. That's not the first one, I know. Anyway, at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 3 or more creatures cards in your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Hey, that's actually really not too terrible. Way better things to be doing on turn 3, but in limited, I think that could be pretty good. Then we got Dredging Claw. I do want to read them though, because some commons are like staples and format defining stuff. So, and I haven't gone through all of these yet, even though they've been out for a while. Dredging Claw, 2 mana, equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has menace. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield from your graveyard, you may attach Dredging Claw to it. Ah, okay, so nice. Like free equip for things that are, you know, unearthed or reanimated in some way. Gives it menace and +1/+0. That's actually not terrible at all. Not terrible at all. Equipments are just a bit meh in general, but that's actually a not terrible little card there. I like it. I like it a lot. Next up, we got Scrapbook Rager. 4 mana 2/2. Phyrexian Horror. When it ETBs, draw a card, then you lose 1 life. Man. Whirling Strike. Okay, this is where I get a little interested. Like, each set seems to have at least 1 or 2 of these, like, cheap red combat tricks. They either give trample or double strike or draw a card. This one is great for the rate. 2 mana gives you +2/+0, first strike and trample. Those are both obviously very good. So is it the best one that we have right now? I don't think so. There's a X one that does the same, I believe, from Streets of New Capenna. There's a bunch of these, like right now, even with the limited card pool that we have in standard, but it's not a bad one at all. Maybe even in these prowess decks, there's now 3 things that have prowess in standard when the set drops. So maybe like mono red prowess, flinging in spells and things. Might see like a 2 of in those decks. Love the art. If anything. Next up, we got the Scrapwork Mutt. Another doggo. 2 mana, 2/1. Now, ETBs, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. Okay, a little bit of filtering, and then you can unearth it and have it do the same thing. Draft chaff, but nice. Nice design. Next up, we got a 3 mana sorcery. Deals 3 damage to any target. And you make a Power Stone token. Okay. Reminds me of that Learn card. Sorcery speed, 3 damage to any target. 3 mana for 3 damage. Yes, to any target. Little bit of an upside, make a Power Stone. Probably just going to see play unlimited. There's better things to be doing on turn 3 and better removal. Then we've got the Unleash Shell. 5 mana for instant. 5 damage to target creature, planeswalker, and 2 damage to that permanent's controller. No, won't see play. Outside of limited, in my opinion. Then we've got the Blanchwood Prowler. Ooh, that's sweet art. It's an elemental. 2 mana for a 1/1. When at ETBs, you mill 3 cards. You may put a land card from among the milled this way into your hand. If you don't, okay, so that's the second card that says that. You know, if you don't, put a +1/+1 counter. Yeah. Ravenous Gigamole. Okay, so it's some kind of like self-mill, Gruul / Sultai Goyf type of a card. Next up, we got Perimeter Patrol. 3 mana. Human Soldier, 3/3 when it ETBs. No, whenever an artifact ETBs, you put a +1/+0 until end of turn. Shoot down. 4 mana sorcery. Exile. Artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. I like it. It's like cut down. Broken Wings, but sorcery speed, 1 extra mana. Why would I play that? Because it's exile instead of destroy. So it's the same targets. Creature with flying, artifact or enchantment, but exile instead of destroy. Sorcery speed instead of instant, 1 extra mana. Maybe sideboard action somewhere here and there, but probably just draft chaff once again. Then we got the Koilos Rock, 5 mana for a bird with flying and flash and makes a power stone. Map, map. Next up, we got Weak Stone's Subjugation. 1 mana aura. When it ETBs, you may pay 3 colorless. If you do, tap and untap enchanted permanent. Okay. So, cool. It's kind of like the kicker one that we just lost from Zendikar Rising. So, it was kicker for 4. I think it was called like Bubble Snare or something like that. Where, you know, regardless of whether you kicked it or not, you can, for, you know, if the thing you're putting it onto already is tapped, then done. It's not going to untap the next untap step. But if it isn't tapped already and you want to tap it, then you can pay an additional 3 and tap it. And then it can't untap the next turn. So it's basically the exact same card, but instead of kicker, they just have it worded differently. You may pay 3. And cool, like that, you know, kicker you have to do when you cast it. This is after it enters the battlefield, so it can maybe get around some counter magic because it's nice and cheap. Might see some play, but probably not. Next up, I'm always interested when I see these cheap artifact creatures. This is 1 mana, 1/1, but you can sack it to draw a card, and it's got Unearth, 1 blue. Yeah, more draft chaff. There's lots of it, guys. I think this is the last rare of the whole set here, Legion to Ashes. So, again, I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible. Aeronaut Cavalry, 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer. When it ETBs, put a +1/+1 counter on another soldier you control. Draft Chaff, Airlift Chaplain, 3 mana flyer. It's a 1/1, and the ETBs mill 3 cards. Wow, white card that mills. You may put a plains card from or a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among the cards milled this way into your hand. If you don't, so again, this thing about if you don't, then put counters. 3rd card in the set that I've seen with that on it. And they're all like milling or something. Interesting. Mana value 3 or less is great in white because it can just be Adeline or whatever, or Anointed Peacekeeper. It's not terrible, but yeah. Draft Chaff. Next up, we got a 2 mana 2/2 human soldier with vigilance. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Meh. Recommission. Now this one, like I said, there's always a few little gems in the commons. This one I think we'll see some play. One of the best ones from today. Return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If a creature enters the battlefield this way, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Rafine, Adeline, the list goes on. Artifact or creature, mana value 3 or less. That's just like a huge spectrum of really strong things that you can have come back to the battlefield for 2 mana with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. How is this common? Am I missing something? This seems incredibly freaking strong. And I, for one, cannot wait to be playing this. Even just like mono white artifacts and vehicles, mid-rangey type things. Even just like bring back your what's his name? Greasefang. Yeah, definitely. I can. My mind was just going down a brewing little spin. That's a good card. Definitely the best common from today. Then we got Warlord's Elite, 3 mana, 2 for a 4/4 human soldier. You have to tap 2 untapped artifacts to cast. Lame. Veterans Powerblade, 3 mana, gets +2/+0. Equip soldier 1, equip normal 2. Meh. Final rare of the set, Legions to Ashes. Now there's 2 cards. This and the red 3 damage sweeper that I'll go back to in a second if you don't remember which one I'm talking about, which are going to help with power stones and treasures and this kind of thing. But this is a little bit more versatile. Exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls, and all tokens that player controls are the same name as that permanent. So even just like soldier tokens, zap them all. Treasure tokens, power stone tokens, tree folk tokens from Ren and 7. You know what I'm saying? Non-land permanent. But then it says, and all tokens. It's weird. It's a weird card. I mean, right? Like, you can exile a non-land permanent. Oh. And there are no tokens that have the same name as that permanent. You're just paying 3 mana to exile a freaking Titan of Industry. Right? I mean, that just by itself is pretty decent. It's like, gets around the Titan of Industry's shield counters and other things like that. And, but added upside. The opponent's got like 1 million Power Stone tokens in play and he's about to drop his huge big 10 drop thing or whatever. You just target the Power Stone and get rid of all the other ones. Or, you, like I said, human tokens that are now all 2/2s because the opponent has a flipped wedding announcement. You just kill one of them, kill all the rest. Gone. I think this one is definitely going to see some play. Maybe like a 2 of in some kind of Esper / Orzhov control pile of some shape or form. And I, for one, can't wait to give it a try. Then we've got the Yoshian Tactician. 4 mana, 3/4 human soldiers. Anthem effect. Gives other soldiers +1/+1. Don't know if it's going to make the cut. The soldiers deck is definitely looking more and more Azorius. Case in point. But is it enough? We've already got one Anthem effect on the 2-drop slot in white that we just got in Dominaria United. That pumps soldiers. Do we need 2 Anthem effects for soldiers in the same deck? Do we really need to have a 4-drop that... Nah, I don't know. It's pretty well costed for its stat line. 3/4. It's okay. Considering it has this little upside of pumping your soldiers, but I just think there's probably better things to be doing on turn 4 than playing this guy out. Can't wait to build that deck though. We're gonna be like day 1. First brew I'm making is Selesnya Artifacts Matters. Day 2, not day 2, but very second deck that I'm brewing up is gonna be Azorius Soldiers. Then we've got Meticulous Excavation. 1 mana. Enchantment. Cool. For the enchantment decks mainly, but let's see what it does. For 3 mana, 2 and a white, you can return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it has an unearth, instead exile it, then return that card to its owner's hand. Activate it only during your turn. So is this going to be the best way that we have of blinking the big artifact guys that don't have, your prototypes? Play your prototype card, and then the next turn you can pay 3, return it to your hand. Then, oh no, it doesn't say back to the battlefield. Okay, never mind. Okay, never mind. It's not a blink. My bad. I misread that. It's to its hand. I guess if you want to keep recasting things that have good ETB triggers, it's nice and cheap, so you just get it down early, and then you can use it to save stuff. See where I'm going? Like, it's instant speed. The opponent targets something important of yours. You just pay 3, return it to your hand. Next turn, play it again. On the verge of being playable. Might see a little bit of play. Interesting that it's an enchantment. Maybe in some like Selesnya enchantments deck, you play like 2 of or something. Save your camis of transients, whatever, from being killed or exiled or something. It's not terrible. Next up, we got the Slagstone Refinery. 4 mana for an artifact. When it or another non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, always put it to exile from the battlefield. Cool. I like that it's both. So if it just leaves the battlefield other than going to your hand, you get to create a tap Power Stone token. Okay. Okay. Cool. Meh. 4 mana. Next up, we got Evolving Wilds. One of the better artworks on this. Every set has Evolving Wilds. It's like just a staple of the game at this point. There's so many alternate arts for this when you go into your lands menu on the client. You know what it does. Just tutor up a land, enter the battlefield tapped. That's it. Next up, we got Tower Worker. Reach 1/3. Tap to add a colorless. If you can. Okay, so this is the. There's 3 of them, and when they're all together on the battlefield, then crazy stuff happens. This is the Tower Worker, then there's the Power Plant Worker and the Mine Worker. And if you've got all 3, then every turn gets. You get all these little added benefits from having them all on the battlefield. In this case, you get to tap for 3 mana. Not bad. Swift Gear Drake. 5 mana, 2/4 flying haste. When it ETBs, put 1 card from the graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Cool, but meh. Won't see play at all outside of limited. Supply drop. 3 mana artifact with flash. When it ETBs, target creature you control gets +2/+2 at the end of turn. Hey, that's nice. That's nice. Flash it in, nice little combat trick, and then you can also then sack it to draw a card. It's actually not too bad at all. I got 2 of in some artifacts matters. Creature-based deck. Nice little combat trick for 3 +2/+2. Could be better. Could be cheaper. I think they could have just made this uncommon, make it 2 mana, and make the activated ability 3 mana, and it would have been like 100,000,000% more playable. But right now, not quite seeing what I would do with that. There's better things. I say this a lot, but turn 3 is like one of the most powerful and important slots in the game, and you probably don't want to just be playing this, especially because it's got flash. So maybe you play a strong 2-drop that has artifact synergies like your Patchwork Automaton, hold up mana, and then during the opponent's step, flash this in, grow the Automaton, both because it's an artifact entering the battlefield, but also because of what the card does. And then when you untap the next turn, you can draw a card as well. Suddenly, I can see the appeal, but I don't think it'll see the hugest amount of play either. Then we got the Stone Retrieval Unit. 4 mana, 2/3, when it enters the battlefield, make it. This is a soldier, but it's also an artifact creature. This is one of the best uncommons from the day, from this episode of Spoiler Talk for sure. It's a 1 mana 1/2 with protection from multicolored, so you can block Bloodtithe Harvester, for example, and it won't die. Or Void Rend can't target it. I think. This is a question that I'd love to pose to those of you who watch my channel that are more, up to date with rulings and things. Void Rend gets through ward. Void Rend gets through counter spells because it says it cannot be countered. Would protection from multicolor just mean that it cannot be, it can't even be targeted by something like Void Rend because it's multicolored? Let me know. But it's just nice. Play it out on turn 1. It's a little bit harder to remove, and then whenever a non-basic land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain a life. Artifact synergy things, can block some stuff. Artwork is amazing. Loads of relevant, creature types and card types. I think this is going to definitely see some play. For one, I'm going to jam it in one of my Automaton decks sooner rather than later. Next up, we got Energy Refractor, 2 mana. Whenever it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Tap it, add 1 mana of any color. You can, of course, use your Power Stones to do that. So if you're missing a specific color, you can tap your colorless power stones, then tap this, add a mana of any color. Okay. Meh. Draft chaff. Aeronaut's Wings, 2 mana. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has flying. Equip 2. Meh. Bop bop. Epic fail. Next up, 6 mana. Ooh, Cradle Clearcutter. 6 mana for a 3/6. You can tap it to add green equal to its power. So for 3 mana, you get a mana dork. It doesn't even block that well. Or you get 6 mana. You know. Then it starts to make a bit more sense. Can add 3 green. I don't think it'll see much play at all, but the art on this one as well is just freaking amazing. Next up, Boulder Branch Golem, 7 mana for a 6/5 prototype. When it ETBs, you gain life equal to its power. So you're either gaining 3 life for 4 mana or 6 life for 7. No trample, nothing. Nonsense. Next up, Tomical Honor Guard, 2 mana human soldier for 3/1 with ward 2. Meh. A Spider, 4 mana with reach and death touch. They always have reach. When it dies, you put up to 1 other target card from its graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Nice. Putting unearth things, putting, you know, whatever, reanimation targets. Bottom of the graveyard. Bye-bye. Then we got a 6 mana 5/5 trample. Treefolk Druid. When it enters the battlefield, you give a target creature +X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in the graveyard. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Here's another 1-drop elf. We were just talking about 1-drop elves. This is the one that might actually see some play. It reminds me a lot of oh my goodness. The names of cards just... It was the elf that we were always playing with Magda, and you would like tap it and it would tap Magda. This does a very similar thing, but for this format where we have artifacts. You can tap an untapped artifact or creature you control, and then you add a mana of any color. So okay, so it's essentially just a better Jaspera Sentinel. Yeah, just Jaspera Sentinel. Yes, that's the one. Reach 1/2, taps, add a mana of any color. No. This one is just doesn't have the reach. It's a bit smaller, but you can also tap untapped artifacts. So yeah, just like a kind of just like Jaspera Sentinel, and is an elf and a soldier. So interesting. I for one will jam this in my elf tribal deck for sure, and maybe even in my soldier deck. Next up, we got Burrowing Razor Maw. 3 mana 4/2. When it dies, mill 4 cards. Meh. Blitz Automaton. 7 mana 6/4 with haste, or you can prototype it for 3 and get a 3/2 haste. Nice that you can blink this one. Doesn't have any cool ETB triggers though. Probably just meh. Then we got Tomical Scrapsmith. 3 mana 2/1 Human Artificer. When it ETBs, mill 3 cards, you may put an artifact card from among these. Oh, okay, it's another one of those. If you don't, put a +1/+1. Meh. Rock Hunter. 1 mana 3/1 reach. Meh. Pendragon Strongbull. 3 mana 2/3 Minotaur. Tap it. Sack it for 1 colorless. Oh no. Sacrifice an artifact, gets +1/+1 until end of turn, deals damage. Meh. This is the second card in the set with prowess, and the third card total in the whole of standard. So I, for one, it's another dwarf wizard. We've got that Pyroclasm. The other wizard that has like better prowess that we already played in my Balmor budget deck a few days ago, and we also tried it in mono red, or a couple weeks ago, sorry. They're both dwarf wizards. They're both 2-drops. They both care about casting spells. So for one, I'm definitely going to be jamming this card in my like mono red spells slinger deck with prowess and the Jaya Planeswalker and the one drop Swift Spear guy. Definitely going to be jamming this guy. 3 toughness, ward, pay 2 life. There's a lot about this that makes me think it should have been uncommon. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Probably from this little batch that we've gone through now, like other than the Stalwart here and the Sentinel, like top 3 from this last day of spoilers. Then we've got Conscripted Infantry, 3 mana 3/1. When it dies, make a 1/1. 6 mana 5/4. Goring Warplow. It's just a 1/1 Death Touch for 2 mana. Or a 5/4 Death Touch for 6 mana. Bop, bop. Then we got Trench Stalker. 4/5. Beast Horror. For 5 mana. 4 and a black. As long as you... Okay, there's a little sub-theme, little sub-archetype in the set where we're going to be caring about drawing 2 cards. I like how they brought back the Flash 2-drop blue guy. That's a fairy. That's name is now escaping me, but that was a reprint and it just came back out in Dominaria United. Also cares about drawing a second card. It might be like a Dimir, draw 2 cards a turn type deck. I've already seen some rough drafts on Twitter from various users, so this one won't be in that deck because it's the worst one yet, but I just wanted to point out that there's quite a few of these, if you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, type of cards in the set, and I for one can't wait to try and build around that little sub-archetype. Then we've got Moment of Defiance. 3 mana, instant speed. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains lifelink until end of turn. Draw a card. If this was just like 2 mana, 1, it would have been like bonkers broken. 2/1 lifelink and draw a card. Instant speed. Nice little combat trick for black in limited, but the mana value just makes it out of reach for standard, I think. It's just a little bit too expensive. Gixian Infiltrator. 2 mana, 2/1, Phyrexian Human. When it ETB... No, whenever you sack... Okay. Any permanent. It's actually not too shabby for a common. You know, 2 mana... You can often, sack... And it says whenever. Like a turn where you like put, or you use up a bunch of treasure tokens to make to cast something. You've got like 5 treasure tokens, and you use all your treasure up to cast a spell. For each of those treasures that dies, you get a +1/+1 counter. Doesn't say triggers once each turn. Doesn't say, it says whenever. And it doesn't say 1 or more. So actually another pretty strong little 2-drop for some kind of sack deck. I kind of really like that. And another one that, like the Dwarven Forge Chanter here, I'm surprised isn't uncommon. Then we've got Emergency Weld. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Emergency Weld is a 2 mana sorcery. Return target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Create a 1/1 soldier. Meh. If it said to the battlefield, would have been way more hyped, but it's to the hand. I like the little extra value here. You get a little 1/1 guy. You might want to be like creating artifacts and soldiers. 2 very relevant types for this coming standard. And, bring it back to your hand. Target artifact or creature. Actually, in retrospect now, like having read it over a few more times, this might actually see some play. I wouldn't, maybe keep your eye on this one. Next up, we got the Carrion Locust. Insect Horror. 2/1 for 3 mana. You get a flyer. When it ETBs, you exile target card from opponent's graveyard. If it was a creature card, that player also loses 1 life. Okay. I mean, that's pretty much what the werewolf trespasser guy does. Graveyard trespasser. Of course, it's got ward. It's a bigger body. It does it on ETB and on attack. So obviously the trespass is way better, but you know, exile a thing from an opponent's graveyard, gain a life, and then you got a 2/1 flyer. It's not terrible. I think in limited this is definitely going to see some play. It's like a toned down werewolf trespasser guy, graveyard trespasser guy for graveyard hate. Yeah, it's really not that terrible. But not going to see any play in constructed. Then we got 2 mana. 1/3 defender. Gets +2/+0 as long as you control an island. Pay 2, tap it, surveil 1. Meh. Wing Commando. Ooh, okay. There's blue cards with prowess. I thought it was only going to be red. Huh, nice. It's the only other blue one I've seen so far with prowess. It's a 2/2 flyer with prowess. That's it. Rubbish card, but interesting that prowess isn't blue too, which it almost always was in the past. So it makes sense. I just wish it was a little bit stronger of a card, because it's in blue. It's got flying. It's a soldier. All sorts of good reasons that I like this, but it's just a 2/2 for 3 mana. Scatter Ray. Counter target artifact or creature spell unless its controller pays 4. Still won't take over from Make Disappear. Or Essence Scatter, really. Or There's always this vast array of different counter spells, and then like some that were seeing a lot of play in one format, then rotation hits or a new set drops, and then that card suddenly, we need to be countering different types of things or countering things at different point on the curve or whatever. So then, for now, before having played with the new set, I don't know whether this is going to be an all-star and a 4 of index like mono blue, or is it tempo or whatever. But depending on how many important artifacts we have to counter, like must counter artifacts that we have on like turn 3 that are coming down, then, and I like the versatility that if it's not an artifact, then it's probably going to be a creature. So then I just don't like these ones where they have to pay and then they can still get around it, because at some point in the game they just become completely useless. So we'll have to see how the format develops, whether this ends up being, it's probably going to be like sideboard action. Then we got a 4 mana sorcery, 3 and a blue, tap up to 2 target artifacts and or creatures, put 2 stun counters on each of them. Okay, so stun counters are still around. They made a first showing in Dominaria United. I didn't see any of those cards with the stun counter stuff seeing any play whatsoever in standard. I don't think they will now, especially for 4 mana. Then we've got Retrieval Agent, 4 mana for a 2/5. Desynchronize, 5 mana, instant. Tap, target non-land permanent's owner puts it on top of their Curate. Isn't this a reprint? Surveil 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library and put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest of them in the map. Draw a card. Impulse is just better. So, Air Marshal, another soldier in blue. 2 mana, 2/1 flyer. No. Oh, it can gain flying for 3. It's trash. And Prison Sentence, 3 mana, Aura. When ETB scry 2, enchanted creature can't attack or block, and it's okay. So it's like slightly more expensive pacifism that also prevents activated abilities and gives you the scry. That's actually not terrible, but again, probably just for limited. And I think they saved the best 2 for last, because Military Discipline This one's nice. Flash. Enters the battlefield, gives first strike until end of turn. +1/+0 and first strike. In like maybe even Selesnya enchantments. Like a 1 or a 2 of as a combat trick in Selesnya enchantments. Could see that. But this one is the most playable one, probably out of all of these today. Between these three. Where was it? The Spectrum Sentinel, Citadel Stalwart, Dwarven Forge Chanter, and then Lauren's Escape. Gives a target artifact or creature hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Scry 1, instant speed, 1 white. Going to see some play. Very nice little card. And that's it, guys. That's it. How long did it take us? A little over an hour. Thank you all so much for bearing with me as I've slugged through these last few days of spoilers. Some fantastic cards today. My favorite, probably Negotiation Hostile Negotiation. Really excited to play with that one. Also, the Teething Wormlet up there in my top 3 from today's spoilers. I cannot wait to be playing in the early access event tomorrow. Don't forget to tune in. The only way you'll be able to watch me doing that is on my Discord server. So if you'd like to, watch that, you'll have to join up. The link is always down in the video description. And yeah, after that, I'm going to be rolling out top 5 sleepers, top 10 best must-craft cards. I'm going to fill the gap between the early access event and the set dropping on the client. With that type of content, rather than coming out with fresh brews with like, I feel like the format is solved. There's very little innovation that can happen with the current card pool, and I'm just sort of sitting here twiddling my thumbs, waiting for the new set to drop. So, like I said, without risking repeating myself too many times, just to make it abundantly clear, between early access and the 15th of November, it's going to be more spoiler talk, discussions, top 10 lists, that kind of stuff coming your way. So stay tuned. But thank you all so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will be seeing you all tomorrow for some early access action. And until then, this is Lone Fox from the BrewLab signing out. Peace, y'all.